Chapter 1. From dead last season to legitimate contenders. Last season, the San Antonio Spurs lost their head coach to a stroke, lost their franchise cornerstone to a blood clot, and finished 13th in the Western Conference. This season, they're sitting second in the West, they have beaten the defending champion Oklahoma City Thunder 4 out of 5 times, and they just walked into Detroit and beat the best team in the Eastern Conference on their home floor. Their 3 best young players are 22, 21, and 19 years old. And the scariest part, this thing hasn't even come close to its ceiling yet. But none of this happened by accident. There was no lucky stumble into relevance, no single draft pick that magically fixed everything overnight. This was built through years of uncomfortable decisions, strategic patience, a trade that almost nobody understood when it happened, a coaching transition that could have derailed the entire project, and an organization that somehow kept every single piece pointed in the right direction through all of it. Everybody wants to talk about Wembanyama.
Over the last 10, 15 years, even when I was playing, that was the most dominant performance I've ever seen on the season debut.
And yes, he is a generational talent. We will absolutely get there. But this story is bigger than one player. This is about how San Antonio did what San Antonio always does, build something that lasts. And the blueprint they used this time around might genuinely be the best one they have ever drawn up. Here is how the Spurs build the most dangerous young team in basketball. From the tank, to the trades, to the moment everything clicked into place. Chapter 2. The no man's land they had to escape first. To understand where the Spurs are right now, you have to understand the uncomfortable place they were stuck in for years before any of this came together. Tim Duncan retired in 2016. Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and Kawhi Leonard were all gone by 2018 through a combination of retirement, free agency, and a messy standoff that also cost them Danny Green. The Kawhi trade brought back DeMar DeRozan, Jakob Poeltl, and a first-round pick that eventually became Keldon Johnson. With the foundational dynasty trio gone and the player once considered the future of the franchise shipped out in a sell-low situation, San Antonio drifted into the most dangerous neighborhood in professional basketball, NBA mediocrity. They won 48 games in 2018-19 and pushed Denver to 7 games in the first round, then 32 wins, 33 wins, 34 wins over the next 3 years. The legendary playoff streak ended, and San Antonio found itself in a place this proud franchise genuinely had not seen in this century. No postseason appearances, no real pathway back to one. Here is the trap that forms in that situation, and it is a stupid one to get caught in. You are picking 11th, 14th, 18th every year. You are competitive enough to miss the lottery, but not good enough to do anything meaningful in April. You have no cap room, limited assets, and no obvious way to become more than a 6th seed on your very best day. You are forced to hit home runs on every draft pick just to stay relevant, and the math on that is brutal. The Spurs saw that trap forming, and rather than fight for the middle of the standings indefinitely, they made a decision. They were getting out. Chapter 3. The pivot. How San Antonio quietly rewired everything. The first hint of the actual philosophical shift came in 2020, right before the Orlando bubble restart. San Antonio entered that situation as massive long shots to extend their record 23-year playoff streak, and instead of scrambling to patch holes and chase a play-in spot, Greg Popovich leaned into youth. DeJounte Murray, Derek White, Lonnie Walker, Keldon Johnson. They ran lineups with 3 young guards, prioritized speed and switchability, and went 5-2 in their first 7 seeding games. Popovich made it clear entering 2021 that what happened in Orlando was not a temporary adjustment. It was the new direction. Multiple ball handlers on the floor simultaneously, interchangeable defenders who could guard multiple positions, more spacing, more shared playmaking, centers who could operate as offensive hubs rather than just rim-running big men, lineups where 4 or 5 players could all dribble, pass, and shoot. Optionality became the organizational theme. They were already drafting toward that vision. Keldon Johnson 29th in 2019, Devin Vassell 11th in 2020, Trey Jones 41st in 2020, Josh Primo 12th in 2021, Jeremy Sochan 9th in 2022, Malaki Branham 20th in 2022. Longer, more versatile, two-way players across the board, and the kind of bets that pay off inside a modern NBA system built around switching and spacing. But behind the scenes, the organization had quietly identified the 2023 draft class as the ideal window to genuinely accelerate the rebuild. And maximizing that opportunity required flexibility. Flexibility requires assets. Assets require hard decisions. And those decisions were about to get real. The DeRozan sign and trade in 2021 was the full commitment going public. He went to Chicago for Thaddeus Young, Al-Farouq Aminu, a 2025 first-round pick, and 2 future seconds. Young was later flipped to Toronto for a 2022 first that became Branham. Derek White was moved to Boston for Josh Richardson, Romeo Langford, a top 4 protected 2022 first-round pick, Blake Wesley, and a 2028 pick swap. Then came the move that genuinely shocked people. Homegrown all-star DeAndre Mount Murray, and Jock Landale to Atlanta. In return, first-round picks in 2023, 2025, and 2027, plus a 2026 swap. At the time, it read like a white flag, a franchise surrendering. In reality, it was leverage insurance. Nearly 5 years after arriving in the Kawhi trade, Jakob Poeltl was also moved back to Toronto for additional draft capital. This was not a reckless teardown. This was strategic peeling. The Spurs understood that if the 2023 ping-pong balls did not bounce their way, they needed multiple backup plans, cap flexibility to chase free agents, and draft capital to enter star trades from a position of real strength. They were not just hoping for one outcome. They were engineering multiple paths to the same destination. Chapter 4. The ping-pong balls, the tank, and the prize they built toward. Last in the West. The ping-pong balls delivered. Victor Wembanyama. The ideal outcome for the exact window they had spent 4 years deliberately constructing toward. And look, to maximize lottery odds, yeah, they had to lose games. That part is not glamorous. Nobody's gonna make a documentary celebrating a 22-win season. But through that difficult stretch, the Spurs never lost control of what they were building. This was not the Philadelphia process where anonymous assets got hoarded while the locker room was essentially emptied out. San Antonio maintained structure, preserved organizational culture, avoided long-term contracts that would clog future flexibility while simultaneously supplementing the roster with veterans who could actually teach the youngest players how to be professionals. Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes came in last season. In just 46 games together, Paul assisted on 121 of Wembanyama's field goals. Good for 15th most of any duo in the entire league during the season.
I'll have to get to know the guys. They'll have to get to know me. Me and Harrison, of course, we've known each other, but never been on the same team. So there's a building phase and a process to it, but
Paul brought professional discipline, game management instincts, and for Stephon Castle in his rookie campaign, a mentor who had quite literally seen every situation the NBA could throw at a young player. By the end of that season, Castle had developed into the team's primary offensive option when Wemby was unavailable. That kind of growth does not happen without the right infrastructure around a young player. Then the asset pile paid its biggest dividend. Because of the Bulls' first-round pick acquired in the DeRozan sign and trade, the Spurs had real ammunition to enter the De'Aaron Fox sweepstakes. And when that deal was finalized, the construction was remarkably clean. They kept Wembanyama, Sochan, Vassell, Keldon Johnson, and Castle. They sent out Trey Jones, Zach Collins, and Sidi Sissoko in rotation depth pieces. Yes, 4 first-round picks went out, but look at which picks. A 2025 protected Charlotte pick, a 2025 protected Chicago pick, a 2027 Spurs pick that, if this core develops as expected, should land very late in the first round. And Minnesota in 2031, a long-term gamble on a timeline so far out, it barely registers as a real cost right now. Meanwhile, the Atlanta picks acquired in the Murray trade are growing more valuable by the week as the Hawks continue to struggle. Brian Wright and R.C. Buford did not panic by a star. They read the market correctly, understood Fox's genuine interest in playing alongside Wembanyama, bought low on an all-star whose value had dipped from peak, and made the move with confidence. This season is validating every part of that calculation. Chapter 5. Dylan Harper and the art of building without sacrificing the present. Then came another lottery moment. The Spurs did not land the top pick, but jumping to number 2 with 66% odds of landing 8th or 9th was its own kind of victory. Dylan Harper. Having drafted back-to-back Rookie of the Year winners, the organization knew their days near the bottom of the Western Conference were numbered. They did not let the long-term allure of what Harper could become distract them from maximizing what Fox already is right now. That balance, real future upside without sacrificing present competitiveness, is genuinely rare for a team still technically in a rebuilding window. Most franchises either blow it up completely or go all in prematurely. San Antonio somehow threaded that needle. And Harper's upside is very real, by the way. On a shaky college team with poor spacing and defenses constantly loading up on him specifically, he finished as one of the most efficient rim attackers in his entire draft class. He is not going to make you drop your popcorn with jaw-dropping athleticism. He doesn't need to. He manufactures offense through strength, body control, patience, and a finishing touch that lets him carve out angles through contact and traffic that most players his age cannot navigate. When the lane closes, he reads it. When defenders overplay him, he counters. When help rotations arrive, he finds the open man. The Spurs saw the nuance underneath the surface stats, the poise, the craft, the scoring instincts that do not require ideal conditions to function. And once again, they were right. Harper is a 19-year-old rookie on a legitimately good team with playoff expectations and a stacked backcourt, and he is already showing up in moments that matter. Chapter 6. The stroke, the blood clot, and the season that could have broken everything. To understand how remarkable this current season actually is, you have to sit with what the organization went through just 1 year ago. In 29 seasons as Spurs head coach, Greg Popovich accumulated 1,422 regular season wins, the most in NBA history, and delivered 5 championships to San Antonio. He defined stability, culture, and what sustained excellence looks like over decades in professional basketball. Then on November 2nd, 2024, he was sidelined indefinitely due to what was later revealed to be a stroke.
Do you like how Victor
Oh, I just loved it.
19?
I loved it. I loved everything about all of them. There's nothing I didn't love about any of them.
The news stunned the entire league. Assistant coach Mitch Johnson stepped in as interim head coach, suddenly tasked with steering one of the most tradition-rich franchises in NBA history through complete uncertainty. As Johnson found his footing, the Spurs started pushing back toward respectability. Then came the second devastating blow. Shortly after the All-Star break, Wembanyama was diagnosed with deep vein thrombosis, a blood clot, and ruled out for the remainder of the season.
San Antonio's All-Star center has been diagnosed with deep vein thrombosis in his right shoulder, which is a fancy way of saying he has a blood clot.
A franchise cornerstone, 21 years old, gone for the year before the real foundation had even been fully assembled. Fox had only played 5 games alongside Wemby before the diagnosis. That pairing had barely had time to breathe before it was shut down entirely. 1 season, 2 legitimate health scares, a franchise legend, and the player poised to carry the next era of San Antonio basketball. Both out. It felt cursed. It felt like the universe was testing whether this organization actually deserved what it had built. But through a well-documented offseason comeback, Wembanyama made absolutely sure his return would not be quiet about it. Game 1 of the new season, 40 plus points, 15 rebounds, 3 blocks. Dominant and assertive, operating from the elbows, the post, the top of the key. Stronger, more controlled, and more intentional than anyone had seen him before. Mitch Johnson, for his part, has done something that was genuinely not guaranteed. Any successor to Popovich was going to be measured against impossible standards from the first possession of the first preseason game. Johnson has not even completed his second full year as head coach, and yet his players would absolutely run through walls for him. Chapter 7. The defense nobody saw coming and the coaching move that made it possible. The move that quietly changed everything on the defensive end got completely buried under the bigger headlines of the offseason. Lost amid the noise of drafting Harper, extending Fox on a max deal, and all the other roster construction activity was one specific hire, Shea Sweeney as lead assistant and defensive coordinator. The impact has been fucking dramatic. The Spurs ranked 25th in defensive rating last season. This season, 3rd in the entire NBA, trailing only the Thunder and the Pistons. Sweeney completely reshaped the team's defensive approach. More aggressive at the point of attack, faster rotations, better communication across all 5 positions, and critically, he had the personnel to actually execute the vision. Castle, Vassell, Champagnie, Carter Bryant, length, switchability, and versatility that lets the coaching staff mix and match matchups depending on what a specific opponent is trying to do. The perimeter defenders can gamble, press, and get into ball handler space because they know that if their man does beat them off the dribble, Wembanyama is standing back there waiting. Elite perimeter aggression plus elite rim protection is a combination that is extremely difficult to score against consistently. The trickle-down effect throughout the roster has been obvious. Vassell looks re-energized defensively, playing at a level that harkens back to his best earlier season. Even Keldon Johnson has taken a meaningful step forward, but effort was never the question with him. But translating that effort into actual defensive results is different, and the structure around him this year has made that translation possible. Castle, meanwhile, is building a legitimate all-defensive team case at 21 years old. Earlier this month, he dropped a 40-point triple-double, becoming the youngest player in NBA history to post a 40-12-12 stat line, and only the second player ever to do it on 75% shooting. The first, Wilt Chamberlain. The Area 51 duo, Wemby and Castle, already became the youngest pair in league history to record triple-doubles in the same game, surpassing Jordan and Pippen on a list that frankly should not have any teenagers or early 20-somethings on it. Not every single decision worked out perfectly, to be fair. Josh Primo, the 12th pick in 2021, had his contract terminated, missing on a lottery pick when Alperen Sengun, Trey Murphy III, and Jalen Johnson were still available stings in retrospect, and releasing Jeremy Sochan, the 9th pick in 2022, a high motor defender with positional versatility and real flashes of playmaking was a genuinely hard call. But as Carter Bryant's development accelerated and the team's identity sharpened, Sochan got squeezed out of the rotation. No drama. The team had simply evolved past the point where he fit cleanly. Sometimes a rebuild is about collecting talent. Sometimes it shifts into making hard decisions once the talent has arrived. San Antonio is firmly in that second phase now. Chapter 8. This is what an arrival looks like. 2 years ago, the San Antonio Spurs were dead last in the Western Conference. Right now, they are second in the West with a top 3 net rating. Wembanyama is the Defensive Player of the Year favorite, averaging 24 points, 11 rebounds, and nearly 3 blocks per game while warping the geometry of the floor on both ends of the court in ways that statistical models are still struggling to fully capture. Castle at 21 is making a legitimate all-defensive team case. Dylan Harper at 19 is already closing out meaningful playoff race games. De'Aaron Fox is locked in long-term and playing like a man who knows exactly where he is supposed to be. The draft capital vault is still stocked. The coaching staff turned organizational chaos into functional culture. 500. That number is not a rebuilding team's number. That is a contender's number. The Spurs have always been the franchise that does things the right way. No shortcuts. No panicked overreactions to a bad month. No trades that sacrifice long-term structure for short-term noise. Just patience and precision applied consistently over time, year after year, even when the record is ugly and the process is uncomfortable to watch. After a stroke, after a blood clot, after a 34-win season that tested everyone's faith in what was being built, they came out the other side with the most dangerous young core in professional basketball. This was not luck. This was not one ping-pong ball changing everything. This was years of deliberate construction, difficult decisions made correctly, and an organizational identity strong enough to survive genuine crisis without losing its direction. The arrival is here, and it is only just getting started. If you liked watching this breakdown, drop a comment with your honest take. In a 7-game series right now, Spurs versus OKC or Spurs versus Detroit, who actually wins? Because that conversation is a lot more interesting than it was 2 years ago, and I think you know it. Hit the like button, subscribe, and keep watching. If this team is going to keep giving us reasons to talk about them for a very long time.